One person who played under Morgan Wooten at DeMatha High School, James Brown, also known JB, your DC guy. What was your reaction when you heard the news, the passing of your coach, a legend?
You know, you think about the lifelong impact that he had on all of us, Darren. Morgan was an awesome coach. He befriended some of the icons in the business of basketball from way back when, to Hank Iba, to John Wooden of UCLA fame, Dean Smith, of course, who's passed on as well as the current coaches, Mike Krzyzewski and others. But Morgan was the high school version of all of those guys and was just an awesome motivator, a model. Not once, Darren, did he ever utter a profanity at any of his players to motivate us, and he got the best out of us because there was mutual respect.
What was your greatest memory about Coach?
Ooh, God, there's so many to recall. I guess if I were to separate them from a basketball standpoint, one of the best motivators I've ever met or had a chance to work against or work with in terms of my sports broadcasting career. You know, you think about the great Red Auerbach or any of those guys. We played a team, Long Island Lutheran. Most of my college and high school classmates, I played with them in college as well, remember this, that we were playing Long Island Lutheran. High school basketball, we were down by 6 points with 30 seconds left. No shot clock, no three-point lane at that time. And we called timeout, and we were down by 6. They had the ball, Long Island Lutheran. We come to the bench, and we sit down on the bench, and we're exhausted. We're thinking the game is over with, that we're giving it our best. Coach comes and he looks at us there and he says, fellas, we got them right where we want them. We look up at the clock, wait a minute, we're the ones down, there's 30 seconds left and they had the ball. But he says, no, they're complacent. They think they have this. We've worked on this kind of scenario week in and week out. This is what we're gonna do. And he walked us through exactly what we were gonna get done in that 30 seconds. And it turned out exactly that way and we won the game. He never ever considered himself or us being out of a circumstance. He trained us for it, he prepped us for those situations, but they had lifelong impact. I think it's extremely important that I underscore what he was like as a man who influenced us all. He said all the high school students who played for him, student athletes, here are the priorities. God first, family second, school third, then basketball. Many years later, I had a chance to talk with Coach when I did an interview with him for 60 Minute Sports. I said, Coach, why was God first, other than the obvious, but why was God first as it related to athletics? And he said, because if I had young men playing for me who had God as a top priority, I knew I had winners with whom I can work. And that was on the court and in the game of life.
What kind of impact did he have on you and your basketball career?
When I went to play for Coach and work for him at the Metropolitan Area Basketball School, that camp that he and Coach Joe Gallagher at St. John's ran, Darren, I could barely make a layup. As a matter of fact, hey, in middle school, when they introduced the basketball team, the only reason the coach kept me was because I paid attention to what he was saying. But when he introduced us to the student body, we were to run the length of the court and make a layup. I blew the layup. Nobody was even guarding me. But Coach saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. But he said, you've got the talent. Just tell me how good you want to be. If you want to be an all DC player, here's what you can do. If you want to be all Catholic League, here's what you have to do. If you want to be an All-American, here's what you have to do. And I told him I wanted to be an All-American. He gave me the complete rundown of fundamentals and drills to do. I worked on them all day long. I used to be your complexion. Now I'm in this complexion because I was out in the sun.
A few shades darker.
Hey, I was out in the sun working. And as a matter of fact, I was blessed to be a 2-time high school All-America simply because of the drills he gave me and the confidence he showed at me. He just wanted to see how badly did I want it.
JB, every time I mention Coach Wooten's name, a smile comes on your face. When you smile, how do you want to be? How do you want to remember your coach?
As one who looked at the long term, the game of life. Darren, I remember his Hall of Fame induction speech. I was blessed to represent all of his players. Red Auerbach of Boston Celtics fame presented him. And in his Hall of Fame induction speech, while he talked about the beauty of being inducted into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame, what was most important to him was to be in the Hall of Fame for the game of life, and that's in heaven. That's why God was first. He and his wife, Kathy, modeled that in terms of love and partnership for all of us so that we would visualize what it's like to really be successful in the game of life. So I think about the lifelong impact. Look, I thought I was going to have a 10, 12-year NBA career. It didn't happen. But all the lessons that he taught each of his players prepared us for the game of life. And all these years later, I can look back and say, Coach, thank you.
Well, of course, Coach prepared you for the basketball court, but also prepared you for your broadcasting career. I just want to show you this picture here, JB.
When I was slim like you. Look at that hair. Look at that hair.
When you look at this photo, what memories come to mind?
Wow. Well, I think the smile says it all. And fast break, you know, we get an opportunity to showcase the kind of basketball, the competitive, nationally recognized basketball talent that came out of the Washington, D.C. area. And that fast break sign there, got to think about the guys like Grant Hill. There were so many, Adrian Danley, so many who came out of the Washington, D.C. area. And we got a chance to recognize them across the DMV. And that was the start of it for me.
What did Coach do for high school basketball, not just in the DMV area, JB, but I mean the entire United States of America?
Oh, great point. He helped to put high school basketball in this area on the map. When DeMatha High School played Power Memorial High School with then named Luau Sender.
For all the young bucks.
Absolutely,
that's
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. They had, as a matter of fact, DeMatha played them the year before. I believe it was 1964. They played the year before. I was in middle school, and they lost to Power Memorial, but they had a rematch the following year. Played out at Maryland's Coalfield House. At that time, that was one of the big stadiums around the country, 12,500 seats, packed on a snowy night. And they played Power Memorial. And I remember the high school principal at DeMatha then, John Moreland, had indicated to Morgan, in preparation for Kareem, why don't you have your center use a tennis racket to simulate Kareem and to getting the guys comfortable to shoot over the racket? And they did. And they beat Power Memorial that night, snapping a 71-game win streak. That high school basketball game put D.C. on the map where every recruiter had to come through here because D.C., Maryland, Virginia was packed with some awfully good talent.
Look at Coach, and you have the 5 national titles, 33 WCAC titles, 22 Washington, D.C. titles.
Phenomenal.
If you got the opportunity, JB, to pick up the phone and call him one last time, what would you say to him?
Even with all of the athletic accomplishments, it was the fact that he helped each of us to grow into the young men that we became. He would be more impressed and pleased that he prepared citizens, professionals for the game of life to be excellent husbands, to be excellent in whatever profession they chose to pursue, but to model what he modeled for us. And again, the priorities were God first, family second. So now in the work world, it would then be work. So it would probably be 3 priorities there. We understood the benefit of that, and he helped us to prepare for success in the game of life. I talked about him being a great motivator. We were never out of it. We had some challenging games, but all that did was to prepare us for success in the game of life and overcoming. And I understand, again, when you talk about Morgan Wooten, the same way that he closed his Hall of Fame induction speech, it was all about being grounded on the foundation based in faith. His faith in Jesus Christ is what set the stage for he and his successful family. It laid the foundation for all of us. And I'm unabashed, have no problems in talking about that because I understand the truth. Perhaps best put this way, Coach was telling us there's no such thing as new fundamentals. Fundamentals are tried and true. And that goes across the spectrum of any profession or anything that you're in. He helped us to understand that in the game of basketball. It's the same in the game of life.
What influence did he have on you deciding to go to Harvard University when you could have went anywhere else?
Morgan, well, first of all, it started with my parents, my mother and father, God bless them. Like any parents with their kids, they want them to do better in the game of life than they did. My parents made it clear the academic foundation, a solid academic foundation, was the key to success in the game of life. If you did a great job there, then it's like having a good dictionary degree. You can go in any direction. I didn't know I was going to wind up in television doing what you're doing. That wasn't even on the radar. So that's what was most important to me. And Morgan just carried that the next step further. He was a mirror of my parents. And he also understood why that was so important in terms of academic success. We had a late basketball practice one day. My mother had a rule that many of us my age and older knew that as kids, you could play outside until the street lights came on. I'm sure you know the deal.
I do know.
And I was supposed to be we didn't have a library at home. We didn't have a room set aside for it. We did our homework at the kitchen table. If I wasn't at the kitchen table shortly after those street lights came on, something was wrong. When I wasn't home from DeMatha, because we had a late practice that one night, my mother called up to the school. An assistant coach picked up the phone and she said, I just want to check, is my son James Brown there? And he said, yes, ma'am, he's out on the court with the coach. She said, well, can I speak to coach? He said, well, no, ma'am, you can't because they're running practice. She said, I think you ought to have him come to the phone because this could be his last practice there if he can't get home to get his homework done. Coach picked up the phone, said, you know what, you're absolutely right, Mrs. Brown. Practice is over and it won't happen again. And it did not.
I remember reading a quote from Coach Wooten. He was saying he wanted to be a coach, like he wanted to be a coach, or people should play for a coach that treats their players like if it was their son or daughter playing for them.
Absolutely.
And obviously that's exactly what you're mentioning. You got the opportunity to see Coach before he passed away. What was that moment like for you, JB?
I learned every time I got a chance to talk with him. I always picked his brains. Hey, Darren, when I get invitations to speak at high schools, I'm thinking, well, gosh, Coach, I'm so far past that now. I'm a whole lot older. These kids are so much younger. What am I going to say? He went back to what I just mentioned to you a few moments ago. He said, JB, no. Every young man or woman wants to be shown the right way to do things. And they also want to show respect. You go in there and respect them and they will respect you. And again, as I told you before, there's no such thing as new fundamentals. What worked back then will work now in terms of giving them good advice. And with that, I felt comfortable. It might have been the same old high school presentation that I was giving, in terms of preparing for the game of life. The way you're dressed, people will make a decision about you before you even open your mouth. I'm sure you've seen tons of pictures with me, my 4-foot afro, my thick, sideburns, my velvet blue Bama bow tie, the whole 9 yards. He helped me to understand what you dress like makes a statement about you before you even open your mouth. Make sure that you have a good grasp of the King's English. Make sure, as a matter of fact, there's a friend of mine, Michelle Ice, she says that she's allergic to being late. Be prompt. Again, that makes a point about you as well, too. Still working on that one, okay?
Okay, all right.
All of those things, but those are the lessons that I learned from Coach, and the same every time I saw him, including the last time, it was still to pull on that vast wealth of knowledge that he had about being successful in the game of life.
When you hear what Coach does on and off the court and you look at the hundreds of players and coaches that are in the Pro Basketball Hall of Fame, there's only 3 that are high school coaches. And the first one, the one that paved the way, he pioneered everything, was your coach, Morgan Wooten.
Isn't that amazing? Because, Darren, I can remember that he was such a sought-after coach at the high school level. People were trying to entice him to come to the college ranks. Matter of fact, I'll never forget when North Carolina State had approached him with what was a blockbuster deal back then. They were offering him a 3-year contract for $600,000, a high school coach. He put the decision in the hands of his family. He said, what do you guys think? And the family voted that they wanted him to stay here in this area, continue to be successful at what he was doing, and he never regretted it. Even when, now the one job he might have taken was when the University of Maryland approached him, because obviously in our backyard he has such a great connection with all the area talent, no telling what could have happened. But he still showed no regrets. He did the job and mastered what he was doing at the high school level and was universally, globally known for the success, not only on the basketball floor, but again, the man that he was, the man and the character and examples that he represented. I'll still never forget, I know I articulated before that he never cursed. I never, ever heard him utter a profanity. He was like Father Knows Best from a long ago era before you were born. That's what Morgan was like. And he said the most powerful 4-letter word that you can use in motivating anybody is spelled L-O-V-E. And we loved Coach Wooten because he loved and respected us.
His legacy will live forever, and players like you, people who hear about his stories, will always understand the love that he had for this world.
Absolutely.
JB.
And we're better off for it. Darren,
Appreciate
thank you
your
very
time.
much. Man, you did your homework. Thank you, man. That was awesome. Awesome.
Appreciate
You
it.
did your homework. So, all good. Michelle?
All good.
Darren was
was 15.
prepared. I mean, God, that was
Well,
no
with the
prompter, no
you know, the
notes,
digital
man.
world, you know,